Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering's 2026 release cycle. We're going to look at Magic the Gathering's 2026 release cycle from the perspective of a Dungeon Master, from the perspective of Dragon Masters, who are receiving Magic the Gathering as business armor, right? And a canon channel, which is very interesting. So the first set that they have announced for 2026 is Lorwyn Eclipsed. Now this is interesting because this is a return to an existing Magic the Gathering fantasy setting. And this is interesting because Magic the Gathering does have 30 years of fantasy settings, right, that they've built up. Zendikar and Innistrad, right? And some of these are, which is really interesting. But Lorwyn is, so let's talk about Lorwyn. Let's talk about what it did initially. So it's really interesting. I think Magic the Gathering kind of struggles because it has these unique fantasy settings. But at this point, these unique fantasy settings are not needed, in that Magic is canon to D&D. Like, they can simply use Eberron and Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms, and they quite literally have used some of those directly. I guess it's really fascinating. One use for these unique Magic the Gathering settings is so that they can come in and do some unique things in Magic the Gathering without fundamentally rocking the foundations of Dungeons & Dragons. And one of the reasons why is the Magic the Gathering community does not fully understand the rich canon connections between Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering, which I think is very interesting. Lorwyn is really unique from a few perspectives. One of the things that's unique about Lorwyn is that it is, it is specifically one of the few settings in Magic the Gathering that did not include humans. There are literally no printed humans in the set, which is really interesting because there are there's the Tolkien's who, that's interesting. They don't have, that's fascinating. Actually, when you think about the Tolkien species, human, elf, dwarf, there is only one of those in Lorwyn, the elves. They are an active, important species in Lorwyn. There aren't dwarves and there aren't humans. There are Kithkin, which are Magic Gatherings analog for hobbits. Now again, a lot of the things in Magic Gathering are there because before you had, but you're like, oh well, we can't just say hobbits in Magic Gathering. We don't own that IP. We're not connected to that IP. Now they are, right? And so a lot of these Magic settings are really kind of also rans and really duplicative of much stronger, better fantasy settings that have already been connected to Magic the Gathering, either through intellectual property or through intellectual property, or what's the other one, or through Dungeons and Dragons directly, right? Which is really fascinating. Lorwyn Eclipsed it's not surprising. It was definitely one of the well-received settings, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with Lorwyn Eclipsed. And it will also be interesting to see if we get a Lorwyn canon D&D hardback, which I would like. Every single word you just heard in this, actually, you know what? I like the idea of strengthening the ties on the D&D side, but I don't know if you definitely don't need, kind of a subpar fantasy setting in D&D like that. Every single word you just heard in this video is my humble opinion, nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.